Summary. After a Saturday night hookup, Celia is expecting to enjoy a relaxing Sunday alone. Instead, she wakes to discover she is just expecting. What has grown in her womb isn't human, and neither is her one-night stand. Part We. Eye warning. This is a sci-fi body horror story. Birth and graphic descriptions. Celia opens her eyes and blinks away the haze of sleep. Naked beneath the covers, the memory of last night's tryst is brought forth by a dull ache between her legs. As she stretches her arms from sleep atrophy, a sharp pain radiates from her belly. Ow! She sucks air through her teeth while her hand moves beneath the sheets. Something blocks her hand, and she recoils it in fear. She removes the covers from her body, expecting to see her usual trim-size 12 figure. She is greeted by a burgeoning pregnant belly. Her skin is taut around the bulbous bump, stretched to a translucent sheen. Dark green veins spread across the flesh sphere like intricate tattoos. She starts to scream, holding her hands away from her midsection, as if touching it will cause it to explode. Celia, what's wrong? Elias, last night's conquest, stands in her doorway, his face twisted in concern. I think I'm pregnant! She starts to cry, waiting for Elias to freak out. Of course you are, sweetheart. He smiles. Elias's eerie response freezes Celia's emotional outburst. She swings her legs over the side of the bed, sitting so she is facing him. What do you mean, of course I am? I wasn't pregnant yesterday, and now I look like I am 9 months along. Yes. Wonderful, isn't it? Celia cocks her head, her mouth hanging open. What do you mean it's wonderful? This isn't possible. This can't be real. She shakes her head and stands, a move that brings a wave of pain throughout her body. Her breasts have doubled in size, their heaviness creating a pulsing tenderness in her nipples. Every muscle in her lower back, hips, and abdomen is screaming from being stretched to capacity over a matter of hours. Fuck, she hisses, placing one hand below her protruding belly and the other to her lower back for support. Elias enters the room and moves toward her. Are you okay, Celia? No, I am not fucking okay. I need to call the police, or an ambulance. What the fuck is going on? What did you do to me? Elias chuckles. You weren't that drunk last night. I think you remember what I did to you. He winks. Elias, we had sex last night. Today I'm heavily pregnant. You don't seem worried by this completely fucked up scenario. Celia gestures wildly with her hands, her belly swaying from the motion. It's not fucked up. It's supposed to happen. I planted my seeds, and they grew. He looks at her as if she skipped biology class. It's not possible, Elias. Humans can't do that. I'm not human, Celia. You're not human? She studies the average-looking man before her. With choppy brown hair, a sharp chin, and kind green eyes, he is completely ordinary. Not one feature stands out. You look pretty fucking human. Insane, but human. Celia takes a step forward. Here, let me help you. Elias puts his hands out in support, and Celia slaps them away. Don't you fucking touch me, she screeches. Celia, no. I don't want... Celia sidesteps to get away from Elias, and the sound of liquid gushing onto the floorboards, and the feeling of a warm slickness running down her legs, stops her. She looks down at what expelled from between her legs. Gray slime clings to the inside of her thighs, sliding down her skin like putrid snot. Gray matter puddles around her feet. The smell is rancid, and as soon as it hits her nose, she gags, her body pitching forward. Here. Elias grabs her small bin from beside her bedside table and thrusts it toward her as she gags. He maneuvers around her and holds back her auburn hair, as she retches violently, saving it from mixing with regurgitated cocktails. Once she has emptied her stomach contents, she groans. "Come, Celia, it's beginning. Let me get you all cleaned up in the shower." "What's beginning?" "The birth. My children are ready to come into the world." His eyes shine with excitement. Confused and slipping into shock, Celia allows Elias to coax her into her ensuite and put her under the running shower. Before she can process what is happening, a cramp takes hold of her lower belly. "Oh," she moans. "Was that a tightening?" Celia nods, the pain bringing her back to reality. "Well done, darling. Just try to breathe through it." Celia's eyes turn to slits. "I am not your darling. I have no idea what the fuck is happening right now, but once I'm able to..." Her words are lost as another pain grips her, stronger than the first. She stiffens and holds her breath, shocked by the feeling. "You need to breathe," Elias coaches. "Oh, shut the fuck up," she snaps as the next pain rolls down her belly. "This can't be happening. I'm going to die." "You won't die, sweetheart. I won't allow it," Elias says, soothing. "Did you just read my mind? What the few..." An intense pressure descends into her nether region. "I need to go to the toilet." She shuffles awkwardly toward the shower door, but Elias blocks her. "No, that means the first pod is about to arrive. Looks like it will be a water birth." "Pod? What the fuck?" she screams, the next contraction ripping through her abdomen so ferociously, her legs collapse, positioning her in a half squat. She pants, barely having time to catch her breath as the next pain descends on her. "Push, Celia." Elias gets down on his knees between her legs, with no regard for the water pelting his fully clothed form. In the most terrifying and exposed position of her life, Celia's mind is lost. Last night she was a carefree 26-year-old, engaging in a hookup with a cute guy. They had fun, and he was surprisingly good in bed. Had they used protection? She wasn't sure. She expected to wake up alone and ready for a relaxing Sunday. Enduring a supernatural labor and being curled over in her shower birthing his alien offspring the morning after just wasn't possible. An instinctual urge to push comes over her, forcing her to comply. Whatever is inside her wants out, and her body is a natural accomplice. She puts her palms flat on the cold tile for leverage, grits her teeth, and pushes with her chin to her chest. The warm water pelts against her back as she tells herself, "The quicker I get this thing out, the sooner this nightmare will be over." The pressure between her legs evolves into a searing burn, as the thing sliding down her birth canal stretches her open. She screams, consumed by the agony, abandoning her body's cue. "Keep pushing, Celia. You're almost there," Elias commands. Celia turns her feet out to widen her stance as she feels a slimy object slip between her thighs. "Yes, Celia, you're doing it!" Elias cries, elated as he guides his offspring into his hands. Celia releases a guttural roar as the alien formation leaves her body. Her sense of relief is short-lived as she looks down at Elias. He holds a pulsating, fleshy cocoon about the size of a football. It isn't quite transparent, but shadows press against the membrane as something moves around inside. "Oh, God," Celia groans, backing up to the opposite side of the shower. A wave of nausea washes over her at the thought that this thing was inside her. She gags and retches, but her stomach is already empty. Her womb is not. "Isn't it beautiful?" Elias crows. "Let me just put it in the nest. Then I will be back to deliver the others." He leaves the shower, and Celia begins to shake. The nest. The others. Part 2. She turns the taps off, never feeling dirtier after a shower. The tile and glass now feel like they house the memory of a crime against humanity. She takes a towel from the rack and wraps it around herself, discovering her rotund state won't allow her to tie it. She leaves the ensuite as Elias enters the bedroom. New birthing position? However you want to do this is fine by me. You're the mother. Elias chirps. How many of those are inside me? She points to the doorway, not knowing where he took the thing she just birthed. I can't be sure. The amount is different for everyone, but based on the size of your beautiful big belly, we could have a nice little brood very soon. Celia shakes her head in disbelief. How many times have you done this? Elias moves closer. This is only my second time. You are doing much better than the first human I impregnated. That ended, well. He trails off. It doesn't matter. I'm so glad I found you last night. I could smell you were ovulating from across the bar. He inhales deeply, and his nostrils widen and undulate in a manner that is unnatural. Small follicles stretch forth, physically searching for a scent, before retreating as Elias exhales. Celia steps back to put distance between them, but a fresh contraction grips her, and she drops forward, using the edge of the bed for support. It's time for the next one. How about you get onto the bed? Celia whimpers, but obliges. Her body is no longer her own, and there is no escape from the nightmare of this labor. Enduring the evacuation process is her only option. After 2 more pains, the next one is crowning. Celia doesn't hold back, screaming as loud as she can, hoping that a neighbor may be home and send for help. By the 3rd birth, she starts to lose hope of help arriving, and the strength to fight wanes. Although between her legs is nearly numb, the contractions do not waver in ferocity. She scrunches her eyes shut once each pod has exited her body, refusing to look while Elias gingerly carries it from the room. After the 4th unearthly arrival, sweat beading her forehead, her breathing labored with little reprieve between contractions, she wishes she was dead. She clamps her legs shut, attempting to cut off the exit and refusing to push. Now, Celia, you are doing so well. There's no point in doing that. Our children want to be born, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Celia grits her teeth and writhes on her sheets, fighting the pressure building in her groin through an active contraction. A stain of gray birth fluid and blood grows beneath her. Come now, Celia. Push, Elias demands, trying to pry her legs open. Celia throws her head back with a defeated cry, and her legs fling open as she feels the pressure of the next pod crowning. She sobs loudly as Elias delivers it and takes it away. When he comes back, he palpitates her shrinking belly. You have done so well. I have some good news. I think there is only one left. Next contraction, with one more push, this will all be over. Celia grips the bedhead, knuckles white, as she anticipates the final contraction, almost grateful. As it builds, she bears down with everything she has, desperate to rid her body of the final alien larvae. When she feels the release of the pressure between her legs, she roars in triumph, before falling back to the pillow, exhausted. Oh, Celia, well done! Elias crows as he leaves the room. Celia stares off at a spot on the wall, disassociating from the hell her body just endured. Her chin drops and she sees her body. Her belly is a mass of deflated skin, the veins still visible, but now they look like a toddler took to her skin with a green Sharpie. Between her legs is uncomfortably numb. Come, Celia, come and see what we created. Elias beckons to her from the doorway like a proud papa. Finally able to take back some control of her body, she covers it with a dressing gown. A morbid curiosity propels her to follow Elias out to her living room. On her kitchen table sits a washing basket that has been lined with blankets in a cozy-looking nest. The pods are in a line, pulsating blobs of translucent flesh. The membrane is thinning. "I think the first one is about to hatch," Elias announces, pointing to the first quivering mass. On cue, it starts to squirm and convulse as a claw-like hand pierces through the veil of its sac. A feral screech rings out as the creature kicks and flails, tearing the membrane to pieces around it. To Celia's disgust, her breasts ache at the sound, and her nipples begin to leak through her robe. The milk that drips forth is not like normal breast milk, as gray, wet patches bleed through her terry cloth robe. The alien newborn trembles and mewls, reaching for her. The basic shape is human, but its features resemble anything but. The orifices of the nose and ears are slits. There is no formation of physical parts. It either has no lips, or they are so thin that its mouth reminds her of a fish, popping its sucker open and closed. The jaw is distended to make a face-like shape, but what kind of shape, Celia couldn't say. It defied any normal human face contour, with angulation that was extraterrestrial. The thought that this thing was inside me. Celia rushes to the kitchen and leans over the sink, heaving. "You humans are so different from the females we had on our planet. So soft. If it weren't for the mysterious blight that only affected the breeders of our colony, I couldn't imagine spending more than a second with a human female. I guess some of it is hormones, but if it wasn't for the fact your wombs have been the most compatible with our DNA, and you can successfully birth our offspring." Elias trails off, all evidence of the supportive birth coach now gone from his tone. Celia spits and runs the tap to clean her mouth out and take a sip of water. The sound of tearing sinew and another bone-chilling screech tears through the air. Another has hatched. Celia's breasts pulsate as warm liquid trickles down her midsection. "You may want to start feeding them now, Celia. They can get quite cranky when they're hungry." Celia's head snaps to Elias. As she comprehends what he means, her most basic instinct of flight or fight kicks in. "You may have been able to force me into pregnancy and birth, but there is no way in hell I am going to breastfeed those fucking things." She stares at him silently until he turns his attention back to his hatching brood. She carefully removes the biggest knife in the block, sitting next to the sink, hiding it at her thigh. She walks over to her dining room table, now an impromptu hatchery, and stands opposite Elias. Under normal circumstances, this could be a Kodak moment between new parents. Instead, it's the worst moment of Celia's life. She looks down at the basket of horror before her. Like demons from her darkest thoughts, the rotten fruit from her womb cries. Her psyche snaps in that moment. With a high-pitched scream of her own, she brings the knife from behind her back and plunges it into the first newborn. It wreathes as the knife plunges through its sallow flesh, and its scream heightens in pitch. Celia pulls the knife back and stabs it again, black blood flying from the blade and splashing its siblings and every surface around it. "Celia, no!" Elias bellows. His eyes shine yellow as his true self breaks forth. Celia ignores him, her focus singular. She stabs the next hatchling. Elias lunges for the knife, but she brings it up in an arc, cutting the side of his face deeply. He hisses, his hand moving to the split in his skin, oozing black blood down his cheek. Celia uses that moment of distraction to spike the third one, right through its skull. It feels like piercing styrofoam, and the inhuman newborn goes silent immediately. She raises the knife back, but she is blocked on the downswing by Elias's grip around her wrist. "That's quite enough of that, you little bitch," he says through gritted teeth. His eyes are now completely different, the whites stained a yellow jaundice. The pupils begin to change shape, stretched almonds replacing the spheres. "You will feed our remaining offspring." He pulls her forward, bringing her face inches from the final hatching. The babies have tails that flick like a cat when it's annoyed. They writhe in the remains of their burst placentas, and the disgust Celia feels rises faster than the bile in her throat does. "No!" she screams, and using her free hand, she grabs one of the slimy little monsters and throws it to the floor at her feet. She stomps around searching for the oversized maggot. Her heel finally hits something, followed by a squelching sound and the feeling of warm jelly oozing through her toes. "No!" Elias bellows, loosening his grip. Celia uses both hands to push the DIY cot off the table and onto the floor. It tips over on the hardwood, and the weak screeches from within go silent. "You killed them! The whole brood! Our babies!" Elias cries. "Those disgusting monsters were not babies. They were—" Celia's words are cut short as Elias releases a long, forked tongue that wraps around her own like a twisting vine and rips it from her mouth. She pitches forward, gurgling as blood spills over her lips. She tries to catch it, but the torrent fills her cupped hand and splashes to the floor. "I am so disappointed in you. You were supposed to be the perfect breeder. Maybe with a few more adjustments, you still can be." He walks towards Celia, who is bent forward and gagging as she tries not to choke on her own blood. He puts his hand out palm up, his index fingertips splitting to release two black, snake-like tendrils. They weave as they lengthen towards Celia's face. She tries to speak, but only releases wet, muffled moans. The tendrils suddenly waver in place, hypnotizing Celia. Then they strike, spearing an eyeball each, and plucking them from the sockets before retracting into his fingers. Celia's wail is a muted warble as she covers where her eyes used to be with her hands. "Without your devil's tongue and the gift of sight, I believe you will be much more compliant." Elias bends down and flips the upended basket. He picks up his discarded young, and one releases a weak cry. "Oh, darling, I have wonderful news. One of our babies is still alive." Celia collapses to her knees, releasing strangled sobs from the depths of her throat as blood trails down her cheeks in lieu of tears. "Shh, you must be so hungry." Elias coos to the screeching newborn as he shuffles on his knees toward Celia. He pushes aside a robe panel, exposing her swollen breast, leaking gray fluid. Cradling his child to her breast to suckle, the creature latches. Defeated, Celia submits. "That's my girl," Elias says. "I knew you were the one. You will be such a good mother to all of our children."